believed at this hour, and it's been confirmed to ABC News by state police there in Connecticut, that two shooters were initially believed involved in the mass shooting. One of those shooters now dead. What's not been confirmed is whether or not that gunman took his own life or whether or not there was something that ensued after authorities began arriving at the scene. And now the big question will be, is there, in fact, that second shooter, and where is that second shooter? There have been searches that have unfolded throughout the afternoon, car to car, with authorities there armed. As you can see, they're heavily armed, many of them carrying their automatic weapons to try to find out really what unfolded here today. Can you imagine being a parent of a little child who saw this scene that you're looking at right now? Just teams of authorities coming in holding guns. It's the kind of thing that you typically see in a television drama. And now these children will be asking their parents about the reality of what unfolded there at their elementary school today.
Do you remember that day? That day when we all heard that lots of elementary kids were killed, murdered. I remember thinking about these. I remember thinking, man, here we go again. Our president is going to come after the guns. He's going to come after the things that we use to defend ourselves against situations like that. And when we think about defense, a lot of times our minds come to the Second Amendment and come to things like this that we think really give us a defense or help us. And honestly, what I want us to understand, that in situations like that, situations of evil, when they happen, our minds as Christians should not go to the defense of our physical self, but actually look at how can we defend spiritual matters. Because here's the truth. When awful catastrophes, when evil strikes, evil gives us a defense for God. That's what we're going to be doing over this next couple weeks. We're going to be studying defense, but not defense using guns and other things. We're going to study defense using God's word. And more importantly, some really important arguments that we a lot of times don't understand and take for granted. And so apologetics, that's what we're going to be learning. How do I defend my faith? And more importantly, defend against God? Because there are those who say there is no God, that there is no existence of God. And apologetics is a way of looking at evidence that defends a position or a theory. And so that's what we're going to be doing. How does evil and things in this world help us defend God? And so, as you looked at that video of Sandy Hook, how many of you, by raising your hand, would say that that was something that was wrong? I would too. And if you were to poll the whole United States, or let's say poll the whole world, what percentage do you think would also agree with you that that was something that was wrong? It was not a good thing. It was a bad, wrong, evil thing. Well, I think we all would agree that it would probably be near 100%. It would take someone really evil and someone who thinks really bad to not see the innocent lives of children being slaughtered as evil and wrong. But here's the question, and here's the defense. Where does that come from? Why would we say that was evil? Why would we say it was wrong? And that's what we're going to be talking about. Don't deny what was placed inside. What was placed inside? A conscience. Every human being has built inside them something that lets them know this is not right and this is wrong. Now, I agree, they're all over the map. Some people say, well, that's okay, and others would say that's not okay. And you go from society to society, culture to culture, all over the world, and you'll find differing things that people think are right and differing things that people think are wrong. So conscience is not the same for every human being, but where does the conscience come from? And here's our point. Here's what I want you to learn tonight. This is so important for a Christian. The conscience of a human being is strong evidence that there is a God. That every human being has a conscience shows and points that there is a God. What I'm giving you today is a argument, is evidence to be able to be used when someone says, how do you know there is a God? Well, the best way to start is you. Why do you believe what you believe? What is right and what is wrong? What dictates what you do? And so there are only two explanations of what the conscience is and where it comes from. The first is a natural one. It's what the world and those who are evolutionists have to come up with to try to explain why people say there's right and wrong. The first natural explanation is it comes from the world. It comes from your society and the culture you live in. So whatever the world says is what you will feel is right and wrong. That's why it can change. And so if you live in a culture that says something was wrong 50 years ago but says it's right now, then that's why our consciences change. The problem with that theory is that if you look at things across the world with different societies, with different ways of thinking, there are certain underlying principles, things that every culture says is wrong, like the slaughtering of innocent human beings. And like really unfairness and things when things are stolen, that there are things all over that every society agrees on that it's wrong. Well, why? How does that come? Why isn't one society, and especially all the evilness of today, why isn't one saying, no, it's okay to steal as long as you can get away with it? Because that's going to make you richer. It's going to make you more powerful or whatever else. Why wouldn't one society come up with that idea? Why would there be agreement on certain things across the board? That's the problem with the world view. The other is that our consciences come from our family. That whatever family we grew up in, that kind of dictates what you say is right and wrong. And so I grew up in a Christian family, and that's why my conscience says certain things are right and certain things are wrong. The problem with that is that even among families, and we all know this, that there is never agreement. There will be some that say, no, I don't agree that this is right or that this is wrong. That even in the family, there's disagreements among those kinds of things. I know that to be true in my own family, and I'm sure you know that to be true in your own family. And the third argument from the natural explanation is it's just our wiring. It's the chemical nuances that natural selection made in the human being. And it's this kind of idea. Natural selection realized that if human beings work together, the survival rate would be better. So to make humans survive and survive at a better rate, the conscience was formed so that those kind of laws and different things of right and wrong, taking care of each other, love, all those things built into the human being so that they would work together better. The problem with all that is, where did it all start? Where did it come from? And here's a truth that I think everybody would agree on. For every law that there is always a lawmaker. If you look in our country and you find a law, there is going to be someone who made that law. Laws just do not spring up. Laws don't just happen. Now, I know that when it comes to creation, there are those who believe that the world just came from nothing and explosions and it just formed over millions of years. But it is not logical to think that laws would just do the same. That it would just be natural that all of a sudden there are natural laws that would come from that same explosion or that same chaos to come up with a lawful society. Well, so one must have to ask the question, where did it start? How did someone, if there is no God, how did someone come up with, you know what, we should love each other, take care of each other. when there's weak ones or the older people or little babies, we should make sure we protect them and take care of them. Where do these truths come from? Where do those laws start? And that's where we have to come to. Because, yes, there's a natural argument, but really the problem and where the natural argument falls short is, where does it begin? And so the second part that we have to stand on, our defense, is that conscience is God's voice. God teaches this. Romans chapter 2, verses 14 and 15 tells us this: For when Gentiles, those who never heard the law, who do not have the law, by nature do what the law requires, they are a law to themselves, even though they do not have the law. They show that the work of the law is written on their hearts, while their conscience also bears witness, and their conflicting thoughts accuse or even excuse them. Did you hear that? God wrote his law on the heart of every human being. That is why every person knows when they see something that's evil, will say, no, that's evil, that's wrong, because it was naturally put on our heart by God. It's God's voice. If it just comes from these things that people say, like our family or the world or just wiring, then the truth is this: there is really no right and wrong. There's no reason not to kill. There's no reason not to steal. There's no reason not to make another people my slave and to rule over others. There's no reason to be kind. There's no reason to love others. All I would be concerned with is myself. What would the motivation be, even though it might be written in me because of my family or society? But the truth is, if there's no authority, anything putting it in place, then why do I need to follow it? Because someone else said? Well, who are they? Unless there's someone higher than me, someone greater than me. And that's what God taught. God created us. We are his creation. And not only did he create us, he created us with his law on our hearts. And that's what he's saying. Even the Gentiles who never had the word, who never knew the law. It was written on their hearts. And their conscience exposed it when they fought against it and didn't do what they were supposed to. And Romans 1 tells us that there will be those who suppress the truth. That yes, God's law is on our hearts, but there will be those who do not recognize God for that. So in fact, what they do is they suppress the truth about God and do what they want to do. That's the truth about all men. Men suppress the truth. They come up with other ways of thinking about God and thinking about the world and how the world came into existence without God. If there is a law, and then there is a lawmaker, there's the truth. I have to make it real in my life, or I have to remove the law and the lawmaker and come up with another excuse. Here's the truth, church. That's true for us. If we're really Christians and we really believe there is a God and he makes the law and it's his ways and not my ways, then I have to make it real in my life. And one of the ways God uses us and uses our lives is by following the Maker, following his law, obeying him, and by obeying him and loving others and being kind, being joyful, being gentle, being self-controlled, all those things, people look and say, well, why are you following that? And they see the realness of God's law that was written on their own heart being played out. They see it being played out the way God intended it to be. That's what John said, that we've come now, we get the light. We can expose the light to the world. So apologetics isn't only about an argument, making a great argument, although that's important in times for that. But apologetics sometimes means how we live. Will we live an apologetic life that proves the existence of God? So, church, I challenge you, prove the existence of God with your life and studying His Word and following what He says and understanding that the whole world has God written on their heart. So, how are we going to approach them and share the light with them? Who is in your life right now that you can share and defend your almighty, powerful God before? So, here's my challenge. I want you to take some time to pray for the lost tonight. You'll answer some questions and think through this, but ultimately, if we aren't thinking about the lost and who they are, putting a name to them so we can pray for them, we aren't going to do anything about it. So will you be challenged to take God's word, to take what He has done in you and share it with others and give it away and defend? I know we love to talk about the defense of the Second Amendment and other things, and those are all physical issues, but there are spiritual issues that need to be defended as well. And you can be used to be a part of it. God bless you. Thanks for coming tonight. We'll see you next week.